The movie is brutal, it is dark, there's a lot of destruction. With the release of Superman, we now have 7 feature films starring the Man of Steel himself. So now it's time to go back and rank all 7 Superman films from the worst to the best. In last place, we have Superman 3. This is a film that from the get-go, it is clear that the filmmakers did not understand the character of Superman. It has a lot of slapstick humor that feels so out of place and is completely unrecognizable in comparison to the other films with Christopher Reeve as the main character. And besides the scene in about the 2/3 of the way through the movie with Superman struggling with his own inner demons, which I think Christopher Reeve acts his way very well through that scene, the movie really doesn't have a whole lot to offer and is easily my least favorite of the Superman films. Not too far above Superman 3, we have Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. This is probably the most frustrating movie on the list for me because there are some good things about this film. The interesting way that it has Superman as a figure who's dealing with real world issues, I thought that was pretty cool to see that on screen. And Christopher Reeve, of course, it's very apparent that he wanted to make this movie. This is a passion project for him. And this does feel a lot more like a Superman film than Superman 3, but the movie very evidently did not have the budget it needed. There's several shots that just takes one clip of Superman flying at the camera and rehashes it throughout the film. There's several sequences and plot points that are just ripped off from Superman and Superman 2, and the whole plot with Lex Luthor and Nuclear Man does not translate well because the character of Nuclear Man is just a precursor to the character that we know as Doomsday. So looking back on him now, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense and has not aged well. So even though the movie does have some things that I like, there's too many things that went wrong for it to be any higher on the list. At number 5, we have Superman Returns. This is a movie that is meant to be a tribute and a true sequel to Superman and Superman 2. And when the movie is trying to do that, it does a lot of things right and also a lot of things wrong. I think Brandon Routh is a great Clark Kent and Superman inside this film. And it is interesting to see him sort of deal with like him being gone for a few years and then coming back and having to get back into being Clark Kent and Superman again. And I think that the way that the movie, of course, the action sequences are very, very cool. They've aged remarkably well for being made almost 20 years ago. And of course, Superman being in the 21st century for the first time, it means that the special effects will be quite good. The plane sequence where he rescues all the people on the falling plane, I thought was really, really good. But unfortunately, because this movie is trying to take a lot of the elements, a lot of the plot points, and the characters from the movies in the late 70s and early 80s, that also means that a lot of the things that may have been permissible back then do not translate well now for a film, of course, that was made in 2006. And, of course, I think the main one here is Lex Luthor. It's trying to be a repeat of what we saw with Gene Hackman in the original Superman films, except with Kevin Spacey as the role now. And besides a few really good scenes I thought where he was like an actually like menacing villain, it just comes off as very, very goofy, very cartoonish, and it does not translate well into more of a modern era. And the movie is not paced well at all. So this ends up being the most average, I think, of all the Superman films we've gotten thus far. Now, in between number 5 and number 4 on this list, there's quite a significant jump, but at number 4, we have Superman 2. Now, I think this movie is very, very good in how it handles the main plot of Clark Kent and Superman or Kal-El struggling with what it means to be the last son of Krypton, struggling with what it means to be Superman, and how he really wants to be Clark Kent and have his life with Lois, but he also understands that he has a tremendous responsibility to be the protector of Earth, to be Superman, and seeing how he's grappling with that with General Zod, of course, arriving on the scene after escaping from the Phantom Zone. That's very interesting to see how they play it out, and Terrence Young, I think, does a great job as General Zod himself. But unfortunately, there are parts of the movie that are very clunky. I understand that behind the scenes there was a lot of drama and problems with Richard Donner not being able to complete the film as director, and having a new director come in who didn't understand the character of Superman, and where we have Superman kind of being given powers out of thin air, and how it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and there's a few like slapstick comedic jokes that don't really land. So though this movie does have a great story, I think it is very good with most of what it does, there are some things that hold it back for me. At number 3, we have the original comic book movie blockbuster Superman the Movie from 1978. This is a film that has had a tremendous impact on the comic book genre of films, and I don't think the comic book genre of movies would be what it is today without this film. The movie does have a pretty slow first half, but once it gets going, but even in the slower portions, it is very, very good in how it takes a long time to set up the character of Clark Kent, him being the last son of Krypton, the last one of a lost civilization, and how he has to be trained and mentored to become the good person who has godlike powers but is not afraid to use them to save cats out of trees for a little girl, like what he does in the movie. I think that Christopher Reeve, of course, is fantastic as the Man of Steel. Again, the problems that I have with this movie really come down to the fact that, yes, the special effects have not aged well. Yes, the final sequence of the movie where he spins the earth so fast that it goes back in time, or he himself breaks the time barrier and goes back in time, no matter how you interpret it, that is not I really don't like that final sequence. And Lex Luthor's master plan is not, it's very cartoonish, it's very outdated, it does not age well at all. So this movie does have some clear issues, but again, such an impactful film, and is a superhero movie that I think every comic book movie fan needs to watch at least once. Our runner-up is the most recent film on this list, Superman. This is a movie that takes the wackiness, the goofiness of the comic book material and Superman himself and just gives it to us. Superman is already in a world full of superheroes and supervillains, and the movie really asks the questions of what does it mean for someone like Superman to also be a person and how he can relate to the world of humans that are already kind of used to him, but how he can combat the physical threats, of course, like with Ultraman, and the psychological threats that are going on with Lex Luthor. David Corenswet is great as Clark Kent, aka Superman. The action in this film is very, very good. There was only one scene where I felt like they could have cut things down a bit. I think it does handle all the characters that it has inside the film quite well, considering how many characters show up in the movie, if I will say so. But the movie does kind of lose it with the way that it writes Lex Luthor. He's very cartoonish, he's very over the top, and he's not really written the best, even though Nicholas Hoult is a ton of fun to watch on screen, and he handles what he's given very, very well. I think that the script is a bit too on the nose at times as well, but besides those things, this movie is a very exciting, very entertaining, and a fantastic comic book film. At number 1, we have Man of Steel. Similar to what Christopher Nolan did with Batman and the Dark Knight trilogy, this movie takes its main character, strips everything away from him, and asks the question, if Superman was real, what would happen and what would it mean for human civilization? And in everything it goes for, this movie is awesome. The cast is great as their characters. Henry Cavill is very good as this version of Superman. It is, of course, heartbreaking that we never got to see him fully evolve into the more hopeful, optimistic Boy Scout version of Superman that we're used to. I think that Jonathan Kent, of course, played by Kevin Costner, Jor-El, played by Russell Crowe, are great in the movie and how they use them as the mentoring figures for our Superman throughout the film. And Michael Shannon plays the best villain of the Superman movies with General Zod, and the movie shows us what a real supervillain like him would be like in real life and does not hold back. The movie is brutal, it is dark, there's a lot of destruction. The music is great, of course, from Hans Zimmer, and it is a very, very good film that is at times more so like a science fiction film than it is what we would think of as a comic book movie, but that's because it is trying to ground it in a reality of some sort, and that is why this movie comes in at number 1. Hello everyone, welcome back to Movies with Michael. I hope you enjoyed this ranking, and if you did, you can leave a like on this video and comment down below, how do you rank these movies? Which ones do you love? Which ones do you hate? And which ones are right there in between? You can tell me all that down below in the comments section. And please remember to subscribe to this channel and click the notification icon to be notified about my latest videos. That's all for now, and I'll see you all next time.